Welcome to Lesson 1 in Unit 5, Tiny Flyers. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, why does the hummingbird fly so far? In this lesson, students are introduced to the migration patterns of several different bird species. They read about hummingbirds and begin to create their hummingbird story. Students figure out that birds migrate in order to find a place to make a nest for their young. The place they fly to has more food for them to find for their young. Students are introduced to the phenomenon and make connections to the storyline by explaining why the ruby-throated hummingbird migrates north. There are several opportunities for ELA and social studies cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 5 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 6 days to complete. You'll begin the unit and the Lesson 1 Engage portion by introducing students to the anchoring phenomenon. You'll show them an image of a ruby-throated hummingbird and ask them questions about what they may already know about the bird. Be sure to see the noted opportunity to attend to equity should the provided anchoring phenomenon not be compelling for your students. Students will find the anchoring phenomenon more interesting if they can connect to it personally. If you want to change the phenomenon for your context, keep the following questions in mind. Is it going to be relevant to my students' lives and/or particularly engaging to them? Is it going to motivate students to want to explain how animals take care of their young, how baby animals look similar but not the same as their parents, and how animals use their external parts to survive, grow, and meet their needs? You'll then use the Read Aloud guide to read Tiny Bird, A Hummingbird's Journey. As you read through the book, you'll use the ruby-throated hummingbird finger puppet to show students what the birds look like and its approximate size. You'll ask students questions about how hummingbirds live and travel long distances. After reading, you can take the opportunity to post and discuss the migration vocabulary card. You'll then allow students to turn and talk, then share a few answers with the whole class. You'll record student ideas, even inaccurate ones, on a chart so students can revisit and revise their ideas later. As they are sharing their observations and questions, you'll provide students with the sentence stem, "Now I'm wondering about," to model how we can use observations to develop questions. Once students have their individual questions, you will guide them in sharing these questions and creating categories for their questions on the class driving question board. Once they are created, guide the class in collapsing their categories into bigger categories that have closer alignment to the driving questions provided in the unit. Do not answer questions at this time or correct student thinking. They will explore their questions and explain this phenomenon throughout the unit. Here are examples of driving question boards from other K-5 units. They depict the students' questions in categories, some along with a drawn model from the unit. Some driving question boards are simple lists of questions or groups of sticky notes posted on chart paper. Teachers and students can manipulate and move around questions and label categories together. For the Explore portion of the lesson, you'll tell students that they have some ideas about why the ruby-throated hummingbird migrates such a long distance, and ask how they could find out more about why this hummingbird travels so far. You'll put students into groups and give each group a set of bird cards from the MySci kit. They will examine each of the cards, paying special attention to where the birds migrate and why they migrate. They will record the reasons the birds migrate on the Migration Patterns student journal page. In the Explain portion of the lesson, students will engage in a class discussion. You'll invite them to gather and analyze their observations around the bird cards and migration. You'll use the provided questions to guide the discussion around why does the hummingbird fly so far? The goal of this class discussion is to analyze student data and identify similarities and differences between the birds on the cards. You will use the discussion to create the Lesson 1 summary chart. From the discussion, students should understand that the birds migrate in order to find a place to make a nest and find food for their young. During the discussion, you can post and discuss the pattern vocabulary card. You'll then read the book Hummingbird. Use the Read Aloud Guide to read the book and ask students questions to deepen their understanding of migration. For the Elaborate portion of the lesson, you'll provide students with the Hummingbird Story student journal page and show the journal page in the curriculum slides. You'll tell students that they are going to start telling their own stories of the ruby-throated hummingbird. Based on what they learned in Lesson 1, they'll start the beginning of the story in writing and drawing. For the Evaluate portion, you'll have students return to their Migration Patterns student journal page and complete the quick check on the second page. To support student sense-making across the unit, orient them back to the driving question board. You'll ask them, what did we learn about why hummingbirds fly so far? And what additional questions do you have now? By the end of this lesson, students will have gathered information to find patterns about birds protecting their young through migration. In Lesson 2, students will begin to investigate how birds know where to go when they migrate. For more information about this unit, visit myscipartners.com.